Welcome, everyone, to a special edition of our March Madness Live here. Talk about the NBA draft and some of the top college players that will be available in tonight's draft. You can see the draft on ESPN beginning at 7:30, but on NBA TV beginning at 8 o'clock, I will be joined by Tom Penn, Brendan Haywood, Steve Smith, Matt Weiner. Matt Weiner leading us all as we go through the entire NBA draft, looking a deeper dive into the NBA draft and certainly what will occur this evening. All right, so for these purposes, and please, you can certainly throw some questions my way if we want to have a couple of questions come our way right now. For these purposes, I'm looking at players that play the majority of the season. And that maybe it's not fair with not having James Wiseman on this list. But the reality is he only played in 3 games. Barely was there. Was an NCAA eligibility issue. So, I know Nesmith was hurt, Cole Anthony was hurt, but not for the literally almost the entire season. So let's just deal with that. Anthony Edwards, I still think there's a good chance he will end up going number 1 to Minnesota. And if that's the case, it's interesting. It would be the 3rd player, okay, who we're going to say, even though there was not an NCAA tournament, the 3rd player who was not on an NCAA tournament team chosen number 1 in, let's say, the last 10 years. Markelle Fultz from Washington, Ben Simmons from LSU. So he would be that 3rd player. Maybe it wasn't fair that he didn't have the complimentary players around him at Georgia, but that's the reality. So he's the best talent of these college players that play the majority of the season. But I love Obi Toppin. I think he is and could be the best player in this draft. He is a player who, earned it. Had to really just work his tail off for everything. I think he's a human highlight film. I said this on NBA TV on Tuesday night. There's a little bit of Dominique Wilkins in there where I'm not saying he's the same kind of player, but I think he could become, that human highlight film. And who knows, he could end up being at Cleveland or Atlanta where Wilkins was. So, and to answer your question, Steve, the reason Wiseman is not on this list is these are players who played the majority of college basketball since he only played in 3 games. So, yes, he's the best. I think he's the best player. I think he would have been number 1, Steve. Consensus number 1 had he played a full season. Onyeka Okongwu, love him. Huge fan out of USC. I think he's going to be as much a steal as Toppin if they go 5 or 6, somewhere like that. Look, the Knicks could be trading up to get Toppin, which could be a tremendous pick for Tom Thibodeau. Now, criticism of Toppin's defense is fair, but I think the ability for Toppin to be a headliner, a player that's going to, once we can put people in the stands, then certainly that would be the case. Tyrese Halliburton is probably the best lead guard. 2 years at Iowa State, outstanding career for the Cyclones. Nesmith, probably the best shooter. Isaac Okoro, to me, is like a Marcus Smart type of player, a do-everything. Kyra Lewis, another player that, first of all, he's so young. He just turned 19. He's already played 2 years of college basketball. I think he could go as high as maybe Phoenix, really learn under Chris Paul's tutelage. Patrick Williams, great defender who played for Leonard Hamilton at Florida State. He'll be a lottery pick. So will his teammate, Devin Vassell. And he's going to be somewhere in that 7 to 11 range. Cole Anthony, injured for parts of last season, but still I think he's going to go somewhere in that late lottery. If he gets with the right team, if he went to Miami, I think that'd be a perfect fit for him. I think that'd be a great fit. Cal wants to know who the Celtics will take. So at 14, If they go big, they could go with Isaiah Stewart. That might be too high. Could go Tyrese Maxey. I do think they will go for one of these college players who stood out, not someone who's going to take a gamble, not a draft and stash, not at least that high. Further down, we certainly could see them do that with their 3 picks if they keep all 3 picks. But I want to just say this. Further down in the draft, there are a number of players that I absolutely love, like Peyton Pritchard from Oregon. I think he could be a solid backup point guard, whether he goes to New York, OKC, Boston. Keep an eye on Peyton Pritchard. He's my sleeper college player to go late in the first round. So just keep an eye on Peyton Pritchard. Already talking about Nate Hinton coming out of Houston. That'd be interesting if that were the case. Jeff Bob Berry wants to know, will Cassius Winston be selected in the first round? I don't think so. I think he'll be second round, but more than capable of being a backup point guard. What we're going to see this season, by the way, is we're going to see NBA rosters probably hold 17 total, 14 active or 13 active and 4 inactive because of COVID, because of a probable late start of the G League. You're going to see more of these college players on NBA rosters for the first probably 6 weeks of the NBA season. You're going to need deeper rosters because you may have to, obviously, having guys that might be sitting out for either positive, quarantining, contact tracing. So they're going to get some real professional run, with NBA games. Let's see here. I know we sort of sprung this on you, so not as many questions here right off the bat. A couple other guys that I want to highlight here. Let's talk about a couple guys from Duke. Trey Jones, he could be someone that ends up at Boston. I know Bleacher Report had him at number 30 going to the Celtics. I could see him being late first. Obviously, incredibly well-respected, high character, solid backup point guard. Cassius Stanley, he's going to be really interesting. I'm not going to say he's as good as Zach LaVine, but he kind of reminds me of that. Who never saw his potential in college, great athlete, and certainly, could be a high flyer and a rotation guy. Vernon Carey, I'm not sold on going in the first round. I think he's more second. The 2 bigs out of the Big Ten, I'll be really intrigued to see where they go. Daniel Oturu from Minnesota, Jalen Stick-Smith from Maryland. Could definitely see them in late first. I mentioned Isaiah Stewart from Washington. I think he's in that 14 to 20 range. Jaden McDaniels is a bit of an enigma. Where does he fall? Probably late first. The Arizona trio. Josh Green's going to go probably late lottery, somewhere in the 20s. Zeke Naji, I'd love to see him in Miami, by the way. I think he's a perfect Miami Heat player. Nico Mannion, maybe he's early second in terms of that second group of point guards, maybe behind Peyton Pritchard. Sadiq Bey, Dan McDermott asks from Villanova. I think he's somewhere in that 10 to 15 range. Very well-respected player that could go. I think that there'll be a lot of good buzz about because of the program that he's coming out of, and certainly can play multiple players. Eric's asking about Wiseman. I just want to clarify this. We put players on the screen that played the majority of college basketball. He only played 3 games. But I think he could be the best player in this draft, and I think he would have been the consensus number 1. Tori wants to know who's the best center outside of the top 10 picks. So I would probably say it might, if you're going to call him a center, it might be Isaiah Stewart from Washington, because that would be after Patrick Williams, after obviously Wiseman. Stewart could be the next guy that ends up getting taken. Just trying to think after those first couple. Jashawn asked about Nick Richards. Obviously, Kentucky fan. I don't think he'll go that high. We'll see if he ends up in the second round. Oh, the other player, you're talking about Memphis, Precious Achiuwa. I think he's going to go higher than projected. So will Kyra Lewis Jr. out of Alabama. He could end up being the player that Phoenix takes as that player that, works under Chris Paul. And then Erin Smith. My team for Erin Smith would be Dallas if he falls that far to 18. I think he'd be a great compliment to Luka Doncic as in terms of a really good shooter. And I think he'd earn time. I mean, look what happened with the Miami Heat with Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson. You want perimeter shooting, and, he could be that player for Dallas if he falls all the way to 18. So I think the Warriors, Carlos, should take Wiseman. In terms of the T-Wolves, Chris, I think they will take Edwards because of Karl Anthony Towns. But, I guess they could go LaMelo Ball, but I think they'll end up going with Anthony Edwards. Who takes Patrick Williams? Well, I could see him with Detroit. Somewhere in that 7 to 11 range, maybe 6. He's going to go in the latter part, not the back end of the lottery, but maybe the latter part of the top 10. Robert thinks these are some of the worst lottery picks ever. It's not going to be fair to judge this group. No summer league, a delayed G League, assuming it happens. So most of these players have not played since March. A fair amount haven't played from before that. So, how are you going to judge them when they've had so little game action? They haven't even been practicing. At least like the current college players have been practicing. These draft picks have been one on none. So, I don't see how we should judge them on any kind of impact right away. Michael wants to know who takes Cassius Stanley. Well, at one point I thought Milwaukee when they had that pick deep in the first round. Now he probably slides to the second, somewhere near the top. That's probably where he ends up. Joyce just throwing out Obi. So yes, big fan of Obi Toppin. I think Obi Toppin or Kongwu will be two of the players we talk about the most from this draft. That's just my prediction. Wiseman, if he goes to the Warriors, will be talked about as a critical piece, but may not be as dominant a player. But I could see Toppin and Okongwu doing that for their respective teams where they fall somewhere in that 5 to 6 range. Trying to think if there's one other guy that I forgot. Well, I did mention Okoro. I think will go in that late part of the top 10. The Knicks will be interesting. Do they go with Vassell, Halliburton, Okoro? Do they trade up for Toppin? Bryce, you just asked who has the highest potential. I think it's Toppin. David just throws out a BBN. By the way, first time that I can remember no Duke and Kentucky players in the lottery. Not that that's bad. That's just a fact. I don't see it happening. So, but they'll populate this plenty of times going forward as well. Once again, any Kansas guys? Asked Sean. Devon Dotson, he'll go second round. Udoka Azubuike will go second round. Justin, you asked about Detroit. Look, if Halliburton is there for them, sure. Could they go Killian Hayes? Could they go... Devin Vassell's a combo. Could they go Kyra Lewis Jr.? They certainly could. All possibilities for them. Could they go Cole Anthony as high as that? Maybe. Robbie wants the Bulls to take Toppin. And that'd be great, if he went that high. I think you take the best player. Oh, you asked about LaMelo Ball is not going to drop all the way down to Detroit in terms of, for a point guard for Detroit dropping all the way down. All right, so we just hit 15 minutes. So just a little bit of a tease. We'll assess all of this on NBA TV tonight, 8 o'clock. Check us out. I'll be joining Brendan Haywood, Steve Smith, Tom Penn, and Matt Weiner. As always, check out all our social media content at ncaa.com and all our March Madness social media platforms. Appreciate it. Stay safe, everyone. We'll talk soon. Hey, college basketball starts next week. I plan to be in that bubble at the Mohegan Sun. First game, 9 a.m., St. Bonaventure, Towson. Next week in Mohegan Sun, we got Villanova, Baylor, Arizona State, BC, part of that foursome, Virginia, Florida. Down in Florida, Kansas taking on Gonzaga. Start next week. Power 36 will be the week after. A lot to get to. Season started. Stay safe. Let's make sure we've got a good season. All building up to a March Madness in the state of Indiana, likely, not officially. Likely, Indianapolis, Metro Region, not officially. Likely, Final Four still Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. So, a lot to look forward to. We all just stay safe. Mask up. Distance. The washing your hands, I don't know why that should need to be said. That should have been all the time. That to me is one of those things like that should be pre-pandemic, pandemic, post-pandemic. Always wash your hands. Anyway, mask up, stay safe. We'll talk soon. Appreciate it, everyone.